Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey, and on this video I'd like to talk about the issue of what is positive reward-based training. What's the real meaning of positive beyond how it's being represented by this learning-based, feel-good, self-focused ideology, which is often getting people into trouble when it comes to meeting a dog's nature needs. What I show the whole issue of, even how I approach training at the intervention level, what it does is it really will challenge, and it will bring dog owners into conflict with this idea that's very popular with of how we think about dogs at a highly emotional level. And so when you introduce the idea of training being an intervention, what you're going to discover or find is there is a level there is a battle of wills. There's a level of challenge that takes place initially during the transition process of bringing or coming into right relationship with your dog, and it will be upsetting to some dog owners, especially those who have invested a lot of emotions into the relationship, because naturally there's a fear of the relationship changing. There's a fear that you won't be able to relate or connect to the dog that you're used to connecting, and the type of attachment that's formed is somehow going to be diminished. It's not going to be the same. And while I understand those fears, what I really encourage people to do is to step back and really look at the fact, or look at what's happening right now in the relationship. I mean, ultimately, deep down, people aren't happy. They know that the dog isn't happy because the dog is, acting out, and the dog can't get along with other people, other dogs, and it's a very closed world for the dog, and so ultimately even the owner is going to be frustrated and experience frustration and feel like nothing's going to change. But what I want to present to people is there's hope, and by reconciling the relationship properly, by seeing that dogs have needs that are very similar to parenting, because what you're doing here, what this model does, is it brings people into alignment with the authoritative type of parenting style. And that style represents the balanced approach. It represents putting limits and boundaries onto your child so that they can be safe, so they can grow up to be a well-functioning member of society, that they can fit in, that they can have a well-balanced relationships with other people as well. And so the whole context again of looking at what is positive, well, it's just like parenting. If you look at parents who have to bring their children under within those boundaries of what is responsible, what represents a responsible, well-functioning member of society, there's times that you have to face off on what's happening, what your child is doing, and getting them to see the error of their ways, so to speak. And so the whole context of what represents punishment or discipline. But beyond that, what is established through the relationship? How does that affect how the child sees you? So you have to establish that. So, but for people to suggest that by doing that you don't love your child, I would beg to disagree, because it's the same wrong message that's being promoted through this ideology, that this anti-dominance, anti-force ideology that's trying to say that positive, reward-based means that you don't establish those boundaries and rules with your dog, that it's purely it's got to be a purely emotional experience with your dog. And that's the wrong way, because clearly what I show is that nature, just like in parenting, has already established the parameters, so to speak, and so that if you're choosing or making the decision to follow your own path through nature, then there's consequences for that. And again, the whole issue of what's positive, you have to redefine that. You have to, it's being defined through this ideology as something that is about the needs solely focused on the owner, the emotional needs of the owner. How does the dog meet those needs, meet your emotional needs? Whereas, how I present this is the same as a balanced parenting approach. Is that, okay, by meeting, by stepping outside of, just what I want or how I think, by doing what's right, and, love represents, bringing my child into a position so they're able to function rightly in society. And so, I have to be able to face off on those sometimes difficult things because I love my child. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, you're not going to let someone journey off into situations that they're going to be hurt. I mean, because ultimately that's the result. So it's the same as dogs. You have to, establish that. You have to establish leadership. And so when you define positive, it's got to be defined within the relational boundaries of a balanced relationship, one that you're in harmony with nature. So, the real positive part, although, going by way of, a intervention, I joke with dog owners all the time. I said, if your dog hates your guts for 2 to 3 weeks, you're doing my methods right. But it's not about the dog hating that way. What it is when a dog has a certain level of power, especially when they hold a fair amount of power, even what is reasonable, like reasonable influence, leadership, the dog is going to kick up a fair amount. All my methods, though, are done in a smart way. It's done in a non-aggressive way. That's why, again, this positive reward-based ideology the underlying message they want to send is that anything that goes outside the boundaries of this way of thinking, of this script, is wrong. And clearly people are buying into that. It's not that way at all. It's, again, just like being a balanced parent, one that takes the balanced approach. It's the same thing. So when you look at how my model works, it's an intervention. It's done, follows the same parenting path as the authoritative parenting path. So, but again, you're going to have the same type of issues with challenge as you would, say, if you decide, say, if you have a teenager that's becoming somewhat rebellious, that are pushing boundaries, and suddenly, you're stepping up to the plate as a responsible parent. You're checking who you're going with. You're checking out, who they're hanging around with. What do you think is going to happen? Okay, if you have been kind of the parent that's kind of taken more of a back seat, and now you're stepping up to the plate, you're going to get some challenge, because ultimately the child, the teenager, is asking, the question, is this real? There's a question mark. And I believe ultimately that every teenager or every child actually wants a parent that shows this level of commitment, because it represents caring. It really does. So even though you get kickback, ultimately it's for the greater good. And it's the same way as the approach and training from the level of an intervention. It's for the greater good. So the initial kickback, the initial challenge, it's playing off the whole reasonable influence, interplay. And so as you get a little bit of challenge there, it's all done in a way that's transitional. So even the level. So what happens when you look at the positive, what represents positive in this model? It truly is positive, because what you're doing is you're doing your dog the ultimate favor. You're taking the burden, the stress, the anxiety, that weight off your dog's shoulders. And you're coming into right relationship with your dog that, in a way that creates mutual harmony and balance. And what I show is the follower role is the happy place for your dog to be. It takes that pressure off your dog. Your dog can truly be balanced. So it doesn't break your dog's spirit or drive. In fact, what it does is it enhances it. It enhances the level of trust, of commitment. That bond is strengthened. And though there is a transitional process involved, it's not the way that people want to make out anything that goes beyond a certain way of thinking. It's not how it's played out. It's very similar to parenting. And so there is a transition that takes place. But what happens is this is what the building blocks of change come through bringing your dog into right relationship, and happens through what I define as follower moments. If you look at my model, you'll see it's clearly laid out. The pathway is clearly laid out, and so this whole context of what represents positive, I show that through my model. I mean, what positive really means. It means lifting that burden, that weight off your dog's shoulders, bringing them into right relationship. And although I understand the difficulty sometimes when people, the fear of things are changing, but there has to be a trust too. I mean, the trust. I tell people, you got to trust. Take that first step forward. Give it the time that's needed. And what you're going to see is you're going to see the relationship is going to be redefined. It's going to be strengthened, and all your issues with wanting your dog to meet other dogs, meet other people, be balanced, be able to truly enjoy your dog, go out for the evening walk with your spouse, with your dog walking beside you in a happy, balanced way. That's what this system's about. It really is. So I just encourage you to check it out. Check out my model. Again, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.